before you got on, Tim was asking about improvising, right? Was that what it was? All right. And I don't know, was it yesterday or the day before that there was a stream with you and I and Dean, and we were talking about the pentatonic scale, because Tim knows all 5 modes of the pentatonic scale. Are you familiar with those, Brian? Oh, okay, yeah. All right. Well, there's something interesting to know about the pentatonic scale and how they relate to the modes. Just to give you an example here, let's take a G major chord. Cool. So if we had a G major chord, and we're talking like an Ionian, right? G Ionian. All right. So the second mode would be a minor mode, right? Dorian. A Dorian. So what we can do is we can do A minor pentatonic. Because if we look, we'll see that we have our root, our flat third, our 4, our 5th, our flat 7, and then the root again. And those are all fit within the A Dorian. Right. Yeah, we can play an A minor pentatonic in place of A Dorian. Now this will get pretty cool. Now, Tim, you following with me here? Okay. So now the third mode would be B minor, right? So we could play B minor pentatonic, the exact same pattern even. Exactly, yeah. We're talking about a G major 7 chord, and we're talking about our modes, Ionian all the way to Ionian, and how we can play a minor pentatonic instead of those modes, or how rather the minor pentatonic fits into the modes. All right? All right. Can you hear me, Dean? Okay, cool. All right. So, what's the 4th mode, Brian? Right. Now, we can't play C minor in place of C Lydian, right? Exactly, yeah. And it has a sharp 4. It's just like there's a lot of wrong notes we'd be playing. Now, up to the 5, could we play a minor pentatonic from D? Mm-hmm. That's right. On the other hand, if you did a blues pentatonic in where like you slide from the minor third, like that, you know what I mean? You could play the minor pentatonic so long as you take those minor thirds and move them up like this. Hear what I'm talking about? All right, you got your bass, Brian? All right. Not if you don't want to. All right, cool. So play a D, and then play your D minor pentatonic. All right, now take your flat third and slide them up to a third like this. Yeah. So you can use the minor pentatonic scale over the dominant chord, right? Even though it has a major third, you have to slide or bend or hammer on or whatever. You have to kind of move your focus from that minor third up to being a major third. Right. There, you wouldn't really want to do it on Lydian because even though you could still do the thing with the third, you'd have to do it with your sharp or with your 4 too. You'd have to have a sharp 4. And it's just getting to be a little bit where it's so distant from the minor pentatonic scale that maybe it doesn't help us to think of it as altering the minor pentatonic scale. You know what I mean? Okay. So after that, yep. And that's really common bluesy like. You also hear it a lot like if somebody were playing, maybe they. You know, like you can hear it in the walking bass lines and stuff too. All right, so next, what's the next chord in our diatonic? What's the next mode in our major scale? Yeah, E what? Yeah, that's right. Could we play a minor pentatonic scale from Aeolian? Yep. So it would be our root, flat third, 4, 5, and then flat 7. All right. After that, we got Locrian. Can we do one there? It'd be like your minor pentatonic, where you change only that one note. Sounds cool. Yeah, I'm just flatting the 5 in the pentatonic scale. But this obviously is not the pentatonic scale, is it? So, but you know what I mean? There's a way you can kind of fit it and work it that way. It's actually really cool. I should probably do that more myself. Okay, so now here's where things can get really interesting. If we're being strict, which modes can we play the minor pentatonic scale on without changing them and making them different? Well, that one we'd have to change it. Right. Those are the only 3 if we're being really strict, right? Okay. So now we were talking about from our G major chord. Let's say the chord is just a G major chord, and we want to know how we can improvise over that chord, right? What you already know is that you can play G major, right? You and Tim are both pretty familiar with that already. All right, cool. Well, let me go through it one more time just to make sure it's really clear. We have a G major chord, right? And we want to know how to improvise over that G major chord. Now, so far we've known that G Ionian is obvious, right? But if we want to know what else we can do, then you could think in terms of A Dorian, right? So you could be moving from G Ionian to A Dorian back and forth, which is really just saying G. You're really just playing G Ionian all the time, no matter what, right? If you're playing A Dorian over G major, you're playing G major. You're just thinking of it from a different point of view, or yeah, exactly. So another way to take that further is to think in your minor pentatonics. Strictly speaking, you can play an A minor pentatonic or a B minor pentatonic or an E minor pentatonic over your G major chord. Do you see that? So this would be an example. Here is your... Yeah, I mean, you can do exactly this. Well, kind of. That's technically not the same scale. A minor pentatonic versus B minor pentatonic would be 2 different scales. They're both minor pentatonics, but it's not like different modes of the same scale. So just as an example, here's A minor pentatonic, here's B minor pentatonic, and here's E minor pentatonic. So if I had my G major 7 chord, I could play A minor pentatonic, I could play E minor pentatonic, and I could play B minor pentatonic. And that's me alternating between those 3 different pentatonic scales. Now, I could do them like this. But if I want to be more musical, I'll try to utilize all of the modes of the minor pentatonic scale so I can stay in one spot. See, so I can think between G Ionian, like just my scale, and A Dorian. Sorry, A minor pentatonic. And B minor pentatonic. And E minor pentatonic. Oh, sorry. Right? The secret will be to not play them as if you're in the key of E minor. So if you play this, and you end on that note thinking it sounds really nice, well, you'll be playing the 6 over that. That's the note you'd be playing over this chord. Which is nice, I mean, in its own way, right? Remember we said the 6 is like a scale tone that you can be friends with, maybe be roommates with, but you'd want a 2-bedroom apartment for a 6. That would be the case. All right. So when you see a G major 7 chord, it's a 1 chord. You can play all those minor pentatonics. Well, yeah, it does, but it can go a little further than that. We're playing that G major 7 as if it's a 1 chord. All right. So what if we looked at the major 7 like it was a 4 chord? So what if G major 7 was the 4 chord? What key are we in? Sorry, what? My headphones got to shorten them. It's kind of yeah, that's right. Sorry, that's slow reaction. Yeah, that's right. So we'd be in the key of D major if G major 7 was a 4 chord, right? So if we're playing a G major 7 as a 4 chord, what minor pentatonics can we play? They've changed now to some degree. Mm-hmm. Not quite. Think this. Think 2, 3, and 6, right? So in the key of D major, even though we're playing over a G major 7 chord, it'd be, yeah, exactly. E, F sharp, and what's the other one? That's right, B. So we could look at that G major 7 as a 4 chord, and that means that we could play E minor pentatonic, F sharp minor pentatonic, and B minor pentatonic. Okay. So now, depending on how outside you want to be, you'll find that some of these minor pentatonics sound more comfortable over the major 7 chord than other ones. And there's a reason for that. If we look at the notes we're playing, right? Right now we have 4 minor pentatonics that we could play over that major 7 chord. I hear a lot of typing. I just want to make sure that everyone's with me. Oh, yeah. So here's the thing. We can look at the G major 7 like it's a 1 chord. We can look at it like it's a 4 chord. And that changes our options, right? Okay, now we don't necessarily have to look at it as one or the other. We can decide what it sounds like to the listener. Is it going to sound like a 1 chord or a 4 chord? Meaning we can just integrate those options to be like one package of options. Does that make sense? You with me? Okay, so over a G major 7 chord, what are the minor pentatonics that we can play? All right, Tim, you say the first one. All right. And now Brian, Tim, and Brian. That's right. A, B, E, and F sharp. All minor pentatonics. All right. Any questions so far? Go for it. What's the question? Well, to find out which ones sound better, let's take a. To find out, that could be so. Let's find out if it's true or not. The best way we can do that is by sort of systematically checking each mode and seeing, or sorry, each minor pentatonic and seeing what notes we're playing, and then decide which one will sound more inside or outside based on that. Sound like a plan? Okay, so we got our G major 7 chord. Let's take a look at our A minor pentatonic scale. What's the first note in relation to G? It's a 2. So is the 2 going to sound good? Ooh, we got a little bit of a dispute now. 2 will sound good. It's always friendly. However, what is it? Is it a scale tone or a chord tone or a passing tone? I mean, we kind of know it's not a passing tone because we decided it's such a friendly sound. It is a scale tone, which means even though it'll sound good, it sounds nice, it's not family, right? Like it'll be a little bit outside. So outside doesn't mean bad. It just means that it'll kind of have a tension that could make things interesting or that might be unwanted at times, depending on what you want to hear as the player and what the audience wants to hear as a consumer. You know what I mean? So yeah, we start off with our 2. That's a good note. It's a scale tone, but it's a good note. Just important to know that it's a scale tone and what effect that has. So what's the next note in our minor pentatonic, A minor pentatonic? C, that's correct. And what is C in relation to G? That's right. It's the 4th. No, it's the 4th. That's right. So now, how well is a 4 going to sit on your G major chord? Not so good. And why is that? Exactly. It's right next to the 3rd. The 3rd is very important. The 3rd has a lot of pull, and the 4 will kind of clash with it in that way. It'll create tension. Now remember, that was what we called before an avoid note. It's not really. I don't really like the term avoid note. It's situational. It should be treated kind of like a passing tone, in a way. It really defines what you're playing. It really lets the listener know you're playing Lydian or you're playing Ionian, depending on whether it's a 4 or a sharp 4. And it defines things so well that it kind of fences in your playing a little bit too, which it may not be a bad thing. Just something to be aware of. So far we know we have a 2, which is a scale tone. We have a 4, which is a bit of a dangerous scale tone. And then what's after that? Sorry, say it again. Did you say D? Yep, that's correct. And what is that in relation to G? That's right, 5th. And so that's pretty good, safe note, right? What's the next note in the A minor pentatonic scale? Yep, how does that fit over a G major? Yeah, it's okay. What is that? What's the scale degree? It's a 6, right? So as we know, it's a scale tone. It's not as harsh as a 4, but it's got a little bit of tension to it. It could be really nice if you want that. And we got one more note in our A minor pentatonic scale. What is that? G, that's right. It's obviously the root, so that's as inside as it gets, right? Okay, so Brian, we got our A minor pentatonic scale over the G major 7 chord, right? It consists of a 2, a 4, a 5, a 6, and a root. 2, 4, 5, 6, and root. Do you think that this is going to be, like, what effect do you think using this scale is going to have over that chord. And the root. Yeah, the fifth and the root. So, yeah, so there's 5 notes in the scale, and 3 out of 5 are scale tones rather than chord tones. So it's going to be a more tense one. Now, again, it shouldn't be ruled out because of that. But it has to. You just have to know that it's a more tense one when you go into it. And you also have to know which of those notes are the tense notes. Like, not just in that we always know a 4 is the more tense note of that scale superimposed over that chord, but that we have to know which note that is under our fingers so that we can tread lightly on it or pass from it. Just to give you an example. That's a 2, it's okay. Here's our 4, that's the tense one. And the rest are more okay than the 4 at least. So if I were going to play this, I might want to play something more like maybe that's over. And then maybe where I go from the 3rd, I could just pull off quickly. Or, where I can think in my head, I'll think of that 4 and then bring it down to the 3rd, which looks like a 2 of the A minor pentatonic, but obviously it's a 3rd of the G major 7. And it sounds like that. So I can think in my head of the A minor pentatonic. And there I went from the 4 and slid it down. And I'm really harping on that root because that's the most inside note. So I could play like. And see, it sounds really nice. Yeah, well, and actually I'm playing the 9, and it doesn't sound offensive. I'm playing the 5. Now I can play the 6, and that sounds nice. And then if I'm going to play the 4, that'll sound kind of whoa. So what I do then is I'm going to either go up quickly to the 5, like this. Or down. And that exactly. All right. So, but it does sound really nice. It sounds really it's again, a lot of these things are so cool and they can be practiced for so long that even when you think you got it, you can get it better. And I'm reminded of that very often. This kind of sounds like something that I would hear Scott Henderson play maybe when he was with Joe Zawinul. It sounds like something I would hear from him a lot, which is nice. Anyway, so now we know where that fits in terms of its tension and the effect it creates over the chord. What about the next one, B minor pentatonic? What's the first note in that? What's the first note in the B minor pentatonic scale in relation to the G major chord? That's right. So obviously that's chord tone. What's the next note? Which is what in relation to? That's right, D, which is the 5th. Again, another chord tone. What's the next note? Yep, E, the 6th. What's the next one? Yep, the 7th. And what's the next one? That's right. So our notes in this one are the 3rd, the 5th, the 6th, the major 7th, and the 9, right? So we had 3, 5, 6, 7, 9. 3, 5, 6, 7, 9. So how many chord tones do we have out of the 5 notes? How many of them are chord tones? In this case, I would say 3, because the 7, yeah, exactly. Now again, if we were playing in a G kind of country scenario, then if you play, it's going to sound very jazzy. I mean, it might be a nice way to compose, is to take very inside things that have like an inside stigma, like the country, and then playing outside, but not totally, you know, far outside. It's just within the boundaries that they're not used to. You know, it's like just in the neighborhood. Somebody who's afraid to go outside, and you're taking for a walk around the block. Anyway, so I would consider on this case, since we're talking about a G major 7 chord, talking about it as a 1 chord, I would think of it as three chord tones, with the major 7 being a chord tone there. All right, and what are the scale tones in it? Yeah, that's right. And we know that obviously those are both, the 6 and 9 are better than the 4 in terms of their compatibility with the G major 7 chord. So this is a good one. I wouldn't say better, but safer. So then, now before going further, if you wanted, you know, you can practice putting these together like this. Anyway, boy, you can really, that's a rabbit hole. I mean, I'm only using a couple modes. I really gotta go through all that with all the modes, and it's quite a lot of work. It's very exciting. You can always come up with new things, like intervallic stuff and chord stuff, like trying to play chords out of your minor pentatonics. But anyway, so now let's look at the next one, E minor pentatonic. What are the notes in this one? What's the first note in the E minor pentatonic? Yeah, that's right, E. And what is that note in relation to the G? Good. And then in 6. So what's the next one? Yep. And what's the next one? And what's the next one? Yep. That's right. That's right, B the third. So far we have the 6, the root, the 2, third, the 2, which is the 9, right? And what's the last note? Which is what? That's right, D the 5th. So this one we have 6 in root, 2 and 3, and then we have the 5. So how inside or outside is this going to be? First, how many chord tones are in there? That's right, 3 out of 5. So, I mean, it's obviously it's more inside than outside, right? And what scale tones does it have? 6 and a 2. That's right. It's actually fairly similar in ways to what we did with the B minor, right? Anyway, so if you were to, it's safe to say that this is a safer scale to superimpose over your major chord. So if you were here, let's say, playing B minor pentatonic, right? And you're playing E minor pentatonic, that you could alternate between those two fairly comfortably. All right. So then what you may want to try is you may want to try using those two and then trying to incorporate your A minor pentatonic. Cool. So I'll go ahead and do the second mode of it. So that would be like this. B minor, E minor, A minor, and E and then B. If I try to just alternate between those three, it could be pretty tricky. B minor, E minor, A minor, B minor, E, A minor, B. So this would be a good way to practice your knowledge of your modes of your minor pentatonic scale, and also your comfort, like how comfortable you are in switching them, right? And just by going like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then the next measure you switch to the next mode and just alternate between the three, right? Now obviously when you come to improvise with them, you're going to want to have a little more freedom, and you're going to discriminate when you choose your notes and your modes. So maybe you do the A minor a little less frequently or more frequently depending on the effect you want to create, right? So be like, you can then you can mix between those three different modes. Any questions so far? Yeah, definitely. It's way cool. There was a fourth minor pentatonic that we could superimpose over that one chord. What was it? That's right. So let's look at the F sharp now. What's the first note? And how does that relate to the G major 7 chord? That's right. Chord tone, a tense chord tone. So what's next after that? 2, which is a comfortable scale tone. What's the next one? 3rd, which is a chord tone. After that? What's the 5th note in the F sharp minor pentatonic scale, Brian? No, the 5th note, or I'm sorry, my mistake. The 4th note is what I mean to say. The 4th note in the F sharp minor pentatonic scale. It is. And what is C sharp in relation to G? That's right, sharp 11. That's the way we would think of it, like a sharp 4 or sharp 11. And the reason we can do that is because that means we're playing Lydian, right? Now, if you remember from a previous stream, we have a lot of discretion in terms of what we do with our scale tones. The chord tones are what they are, but the scale tones, we have some liberties. There are some liberties we can take. An example would be playing a 4 or a sharp 4. And we know that the sharp 4 is a pleasant one, right? Because it doesn't conflict with the 3rd. I always think of this as like a sci-fi progressive kind of like future sound. Anyway, yeah, great. And then the last note was E, as you mentioned, which is what? What is E in relation to G? 6. All right, cool. So we have our major 7, our 2, our 9, right? Same. We have a 3rd, we have a sharp 11 or sharp 4, and we have a 6. So how many of these notes are chord tones? 2, yeah. And one of those 2 is the major 7, which is one of the more tense ones anyway. So this one is probably my favorite in a way. I mean, one way is kind of a superficial, maybe a bad reason. It's easy to find. You go to your root and move down a fret and play your minor pentatonic scale, right? It's easy to find. So there's that. But we don't want something to be our favorite based on how easy or difficult it is. Or at least not if we like it more for being easy. If we like it more for being difficult, there might be some virtue to be found there. But what we really want is to like it based on its tonal quality, right? How cool does it sound, and why does it sound that cool? Well, to me, it sounds really cool because we got like some of the more hip notes. We got our major 7, we got a sharp 11, we got the 2, but we're not neglecting the fact that there's a 3rd. So it's just really nice. So now what we have is our A minor, B minor, E minor, and and F sharp minor. Cool. Only we're going to want to play them with G major in our mind. So we focus on our G. And we can think A minor. And we can think of our B minor. Think of our E minor. Think of our F sharp minor. And then back to B minor. That's neat. We go from our E minor, F sharp minor, and then to G minor, or sorry, B minor, maybe E minor, B minor, F sharp minor, and then B minor. You know, and you can kind of, or A minor. That's kind of neat if you think about it. Check this out. All right, so anyway, that's quite a lot of information, but now we know there's 4 minor pentatonics that we can play over a major 7 chord, right? So, any questions so far? Okay. What'd you say? Well, how do you think like that while you're playing? It's a good question. Here's how you do it, really. One, you practice it so much that if you see a G major 7 chord, you know, then you just reach for the 3rd and play your minor pentatonic. You know, like you pick one that seems really comfortable to you, and then you practice that. You just get used to it basically by practicing. Yeah, exactly. But very much in a practicing sense, where you try to be very diligent and making sure that you can switch in time and try to put yourself in different scenarios and practice. Maybe use a metronome if you want. The nice thing about a metronome is that it really has the effect of going for a jog or something, or a run, depending on the speed you want to go. And then if you had a car following you that would not stop. So it's like if you slow down, you just get hit, you know? And it gives you, it's like it really lets you know when you don't know something, when you're not moving fast enough. So then you want to slow down the car, obviously, to your pace until you're able to go faster. But another thing is when you're playing, you'll just take something you do know and then try to switch to one of the newer things. So it's not, you don't have to think of all of it at once. You just think of one of them at a time. So here's an example. G major 7 chord. Now, if I were playing over this, maybe let's say I'm playing this. And then suddenly I think, oh yeah, I can do the F sharp minor. And then I just go back into my normal world. It's like, oh, it's kind of a trick. It's kind of, I mean, it's tricky to do. So let's say I got my G major and I'm just thinking about my normal paths and my normal way of playing. I'll just kind of like noodle around in the scale. And then, oh, how about that F sharp minor I'm trying to get better at? Okay, let me go back to my normal thing. How about my F sharp minor I'm trying to get better at? What if I do my G major triad? Now I can take from the scale, and then maybe I do just like that. I mean, that's kind of the way I like to go about it before I bust a metronome out. Is really what I try to do is I try to slow myself down, which I'm not doing now, but like I'll try to do it like this maybe, where I play G. And then I'll think, okay, now I'll go from here up to the F sharp minor, and I'll do one of the other modes. And then I'll go back up into my G. And I'll do E, I'm thinking E minor pentatonic over the G, which we already talked about. G. E minor. F sharp minor. E minor. F sharp minor. Back just to my normal G stuff. E minor. Oop. To F sharp. And back to G. And just like it kind of becomes like a noodle fest where you're challenging instead of noodling in what you do know, you're trying to noodle in what you don't know and just get more comfortable with it. Another way you could do it if you're trying to be really subtle at first, if you're a more conservative practitioner, if that's such a way to put it, would be you play your G major 7 and you do your Ionian stuff that you know, like this, and you try to play musically, however unmusical this may be, and little phrases, and you play something and you stop, and then you go. Now I'm just doing F sharp minor. Then you go back to your G Ionian. And then your F sharp. Back to G. To F sharp. To G. To your F sharp. G. F sharp. Oop. Oh, there we go. Obviously, I left the conservative land there, trying to expand, like go up to what I don't know. That's kind of a lot of it. It's like balancing how quickly you progress on the next thing and finding out, oops, that's hard. And but have fun with that discovery of it being hard, and that's like, oh, dang it, you know. Yeah, man. See, explaining it is a 1 hour thing, probably. Practicing it is a lifetime. I mean, it's not a week, it's not 2 weeks, it's a lifetime. Yeah, and then being able to do it in all positions. And so what we could do, I mean, there's so much to be talked about on this that we can talk about. We can do everything from creating licks that are based from these concepts to sequences and switching between patterns within a sequence. This is very difficult. Basically, there's a lot of ways to practice it. There's a lot of ways to make it to play it musically and come up with licks. Hopefully, to improvise as well as we could compose a lick would be the ideal in terms of improvisation. And then trying it in different songs and different settings, and anyway, just a lot that can be done with it. So we've done more than scratched the surface, but we've far from tapped the well. Okay, that's right. That's right. All right, guys. Well, good stream, and I'll let you go for now.